You're listening to The Bird Bath. Welcome back to The Bird Bath. Each week we scrape the surface of the news you need to know, so let's get into it. Top story this week is kind of a follow-up and some new developments in one that we've talked about a couple times, which is some new studies from the farmer's dog and how some other groups in the industry are reacting to that. So over the past couple of months, we've hit on some of the big studies that the farmer's dog did about quality of their nutrition as well as hydration, benefits to elder or aging dogs. But the big claim that a lot of people had an issue was that fresh human-grade diets could support healthier aging in senior dogs. So they put markers there saying that there was lower inflammation, improved metabolic profiles, and a lot of other big buzzwords. So BSM Partners, which is a major pet nutrition consulting firm, just published an analysis arguing that the study is what they call fundamentally flawed and potentially misleading. So they did not hold back in their critiques of the studies. They went through a list of several things, and I'll just go through them with you here. They said that there were too many variables changed at once. As they said, the study was marketed as a fresh versus kibble, but BSM pointed out that two diets weren't nutritionally matched. The farmer's dog food was higher in protein and fat, lower in carbs, and contained more omega-3s. And so that kibble they were testing against had a lot of those other mixes of things that could have a lot of other variables besides just being fresh or kibble. So they're saying any benefits that could have been due to the nutrition might not have been attributed to the processing method. So too many variables changed there. The nutrient tables in the papers contain major errors, according to BSM. They claim that the published micronutrient values for the kibble were wildly off, in some cases implausibly high or inconsistent, which, as they say, undermines every downstream comparison. They wanted more transparency. They said key methodology details weren't included: exact portioning, cooking conditions, medication controls, and other variables you'd need to replicate the study. Without that, it's difficult to validate the results or rule out any bias. So that's a big thing, as you guys all probably know. But whenever you're running a study, part of the purpose of publishing that study is that it should have all of the methodology so that anybody with the equipment, the labs, the technology, or the team should be able to replicate that study to validate the findings. And they're saying they're missing quite a few of those issues there. And then the final big thing, which I found kind of interesting, it's where the two worlds of marketing versus medical hit each other, but they said there was a questionable use of the word fresh. BSM noted that the regulatory bodies like AAFCO typically reserve fresh for raw or refrigerated products, and the farmer's dog used cooked diets, so they argue that the terminology feels more like branding than a scientific classification. Now, the farmer's dog is not just sitting by with these. They've already responded. They say the study clearly discloses its limitations, including the different nutrient profiles, and that the metabolic improvements observed in senior dogs are meaningful regardless. They also defend their terminology as consistent with industry practices, which I got to agree with them. I think we all lump fresh food into something that's not bagged kibble, and then it breaks down from there. But it's a big thing here, right? There's a really big study that's gotten a lot of traction, and I've had a lot of conversations with people about it. And now we're seeing where people are saying, hey, you can't just throw these things around. Kibble's been around for a long time, and there's a lot of big players in the kibble space. And farmer's dog is definitely a disruptor in the space, bringing in a fresh or cooked method that's different than the processing for kibble. So it's a pretty big piece, and when there's a company-backed study and it gets a lot of this widespread pickup, it can sort of change the perception of how the public looks at things. So BSM is saying not so fast, and they're really trying to ask for more rigor in how people are putting out these studies. So big study, big info, looking forward to seeing where this goes from here. All of you know I am probably much to my chagrin, a PIMS guy at heart, and a new segment of a PIMS has just launched. Instinct Science has launched Instinct EMR for primary care. In the release, Dr. Caleb Frankel, who's co-founder and CEO, said for almost a decade, Instinct has made a name for itself with products that help power many of the world's leading specialty and emergency centers, with software helping them work smarter, safer, and more profitably. Over the years, one of our most common requests is, when will this be available for smaller practices? Today, we're excited to finally be bringing this platform to busy general practices. I know this has been something that the team at Instinct has been working on for quite a while, and it's not that easy to switch a PIMS that works for a lot of people in the ER settings with a heavy sort of backbone of the treatment sheets that Instinct launched with to begin with, and move that over to the world of GPs. So big stuff for Instinct, bringing their PIMS to the GP practices. Like they said, it's been something a lot of people have been asking for. There's going to be continuously that understanding of treatment sheets is a very important piece. They've got the status boards, like the whiteboard that everyone looks for, digital anesthesia and dental charting, as well as the built-in plums capability. As you know, Instinct acquired Vetmedics, which owns Clinicians Brief and Plums, a couple years ago, a year and a half ago. And so a lot of those things are going to be able to continue in there. They've got their own payment processing integrated in there, reporting, analytics. So all the things you expected from that world-class EMR that they brought to ERs and surgical centers is now available for GPs. Wagmo released a study for any pet parents that work, which probably most of us, with what the cost of a lot of the care has been recently. But Wagmo, which is a company that works as a pet benefits platform and partners with employers to offer pet insurance and wellness perks, released a national survey of over 1,000 working pet parents, and the results paint a pretty remarkable picture of how deeply pet health is now intersected into our work life. According to Wagmo, 75% of working pet parents say their pet's health directly affects their stress at work. That one's pretty big, but it goes even further than that. It says nearly 70% say their productivity drops when their pet is sick or injured. And on average, respondents report losing 7.3 workdays every year dealing with pet health needs, going to urgent care, post-op monitoring, and also just what they said in the survey here, my dog isn't acting right, anxiety. I think we've all probably felt that. And so they were able to truly calculate a 7.3 working days lost from those things. They said the financial stress is tied right into this. Nearly a third of pet parents say they spend more than $5,000 on pet health in the past year. And when you line that up with their workplace expectations, it makes sense that 76% of employees believe pet health benefits should be a standard part of benefits packages right alongside dental or vision. Now, 76% feels high to me. I think everyone would love to see that. I don't know that people would expect it to be a standard part of a benefits, but hey, I would love to see it. So it's not something that's standalone here for Wagmo. It ties into some of the other studies that we've heard about. AirVet's 2025 workforce survey found that 92% of pet parents feel significant stress when their pet's unwell, and 55% had to dip into emergency savings or rely on credit to pay for care, and 81% spent over $500 on unplanned vet bills in the last year. You know, people, they spend that money and it doesn't just go away. They're thinking about it while they're at the office. They're thinking about it while they're at work. They're thinking about it when they're just trying to decide, do I take this next shift? Do I push harder on this commission? What do I do to make up to that? Additionally, across the industry, NAFIA talked about, which is the North American Pet Health Insurance Association, NAFIA, reported that insurance premiums have reached $5.2 billion and are covering more than 7 million pets across North America. So there is growth in this. There's things that we're seeing here. And it seems like Wagmo is trying to demonstrate to the employers that, hey, your people are thinking about this. Let's bring these pet health benefits into the workplace compensation and make it so that people can have healthy pets, have less stress, and be better employees, right? It all ties back into the same thing there. Final story, and then I want to give you a little bit of a background of what last week looked like. But one story that has been just going on, but is hopefully coming to an end or just a new beginning, is that Mars is set to complete their acquisition of Kellanova. We talked about this when they announced it in August of 2024. It's finally cleared all the approvals, and they're expected to close the deal this week. It's a $36 billion acquisition of the whole snack food side of Kellogg, which is what Kellanova is. So Mars is taking over the snack food side of the business from Kellogg while they're continuing to grow that piece. And so definitely interesting. The impact we've seen on the vet world is that we've seen a conversations, let's just say, around the increase of demand of each one of the different divisions within Mars to pull their own weight. They brought on additional debt to handle this $36 billion acquisition. And so hopefully as we see this close and the availability of those funds continuing to reinvest into the business and see them grow through the Kellanova portfolio, we'll start to see some things shift and change across the entire Mars landscape. I, for one, would love to see some Snickers Pop-Tarts, maybe some Rice Krispies with M&Ms in it, or for our cat friends, some Eggos that are Whiskas flavors. So let's see what we can find out here as Mars takes on this new portfolio. Now, finally, like I said, I wanted to tell you guys what I did last week. I was at the Pet Connect USA event put on by Kasako, and it was wonderful. You know, there were a lot of really, really incredible and intelligent investors, as well as a lot of really cool startups, and a couple things that really stood out that I wanted to tip my hat to or just bring light to was a session that Forward put on. Forward is a marketing agency that does incredible work in the animal health space, and they did a really fun roundtable where we got to have different scenarios where we had a company, a telehealth company that was acquired and needing to increase market share, and what would we do to reduce the CAC, and how would we improve customer satisfaction. And then they threw out wild card scenarios as we had begun and planning what we wanted to do, and tariffs hit, or we lost a key member of the staff, or things like that. So that was a really great session. I really enjoyed hearing and getting to sit down with some other people, as well as Dean Rustin Moore gave a great talk around his book on the human-animal bond. Rusty's always a great person to hear from, and he really tied it all together, and it was cool to see such a veterinary-minded person take the stage at a pet-focused conference. I had the chance to do an interview, which you guys know I always love chatting. And then another one that was really fun, which is probably just my love of reality TV, but Shark Tank. There was a Shark Tank producer that came on. She was a supervising casting producer, and she came and talked about what they look for in companies that are going to be on the show. They're doing casting right now for the next season, and it was especially fun because there were two companies that had been on Shark Tank that were there, Base Paws as well as Diggs, and it was neat to see sort of their take and hear what they had to say, as well as Mindy was actually a producer on The Apprentice, and another founder was there, had won The Apprentice. So it was kind of a little competition business reality TV show reunion for a lot of folks, and it was fun just to sort of hear what that's like, how they're looking at sourcing companies. So if you have a business, obviously a lot of consumer-focused businesses, but they said a lot of interest in pet businesses to get on Shark Tank. It's a good time to apply now. So if you want to do that, be sure to reach out to the Shark Tank casting team. It was abc.com/Shark Tank. And if you're on there, let me know. I'll shout you out from the roof. So that was what was going on in LA last week. And for more on these and other stories, join us by subscribing to our Substack. There's a link in the bio. And don't miss out on any episodes by subscribing and rating the show. For the Bird Bath, I'm Ryan Leach. See you next week.